first thing that I read when studying the period of October 2011 when it came to professional wrestling somehow resulted in me looking a lot at the face of Brock Lesnar. I mean, he wasn't scheduled to come back to the WWE until early the next year, but of course, after he lost to Cain Velasquez at UFC 121, he bumped into The Undertaker, who was sat in the stands, and all of a sudden everybody went crazy. All planned beforehand with the intention of actually having a match between these two at WrestleMania 27. As Brock walked past the Phenom, The Undertaker said, "Wanna do it?" And nobody knew what that meant. The internet lit up with speculation, and some people said, oh my gosh, they're gonna have a fight, and some people said, oh my gosh, they're gonna play a game of Uno. And of course, some people said, oh, they're gonna have sex, because the internet always has to be potty mouthed at some point. And everybody was happy to do this. Not the sex part. What I mean is everybody was happy for them to go to WrestleMania, apart from Dana White. Brock being Brock hadn't mentioned any of this to his current boss, and when he did find out, he was like, no, you're not doing that. But the ears of video game maker THQ picked up, and they were like, well, hey, if we can't do it in reality, why don't we have a fantasy matchup? Hey, Brock, would you like to be in our new WWE video game? Dana White didn't have a problem with that, and you know what happens when old superstars go into the video games. Somehow, soon afterwards, they turn back up on TV. The absolute best part, though, is if you go and watch the Brock Lesnar promotional videos for WWE 12, he actually says, yeah, maybe one day I'll come back to WWE and I'll break The Undertaker's WrestleMania streak. Yeah, right. There's also some incredible stories about Vince McMahon and how ran down he was during this period, to the point he just wouldn't sleep for days and then would catch up on his rest by napping for a day and a half. Just in case you're interested, that is not the way to live your life or to be healthy. It even got to the point where he wouldn't even hide the fact that he had the flu. And now you're thinking to yourself, Simon, that is a crap story. Why do I care about that? Because it's Vince McMahon, damn it. And he used to no-sell illness to everyone. But during this period, he was like, oh no, I do have the flu. It absolutely sucks. As for this Raw itself and the idea that, hey, we can get the whole staff and the whole wrestlers and the whole company to walk out, well, you won't be surprised to hear this was a last-minute decision by Vincent Kennedy McMahon himself. And even when his right-hand men went, Vince, there's a lot of plot holes in this, it doesn't make sense, he was like, damn it, pal, I want to do it. So we did it. The problem, of course, was if they were going to walk out on Raw, why the hell were they working house shows, and why the hell did they work SmackDown? Now, we did kind of get around this by going, well, Triple H may be the COO, but he's only the COO of Raw. So technically all of this was gibberish. And it's things like this I want people to remember in 2021 when you go, oh, it was so much better back in the day. No, it wasn't. There's always been these gaping holes in the storylines, but for some reason, we love it anyway. Raw just gets in your system and it refuses to leave. Another favourite quote was that the show barely resembled that was written down in the script, and that really made me laugh, and it's why we got a match between Randy Orton and Mark Henry. Now, they'd had somewhat of a feud before this, but everyone had gone, hey, if we separate them now and give it a little bit of time, maybe we can bring them back together and have a super match. But yeah, we couldn't come up with anything else, so someone went, let's just do it again. This is also the episode where Jim Ross gets fired on live television, and nobody had bothered to tell Jim Ross, but we will talk about it all. We're also a couple of weeks away from Vengeance, where the main event was going to be Alberto Del Rio versus John Cena in a last man standing match, and the bizarre team of Triple H and CM Punk taking on The Miz and R-Truth. I mean, where the hell did that one come from? This was the same year where Punk had lit up the summer because he was so mad at the likes of Hunter Hearst Helmsley. That's WWE, man. You just never know where the hell you're going to end up. Anyway, it is back to early October 2011, and that's right. Let's up those downs with this finger, because the finger of power is injured, for the Raw, where everybody went on strike. So some context for those that need it. Triple H was the COO / wrestler / in charge of things. I don't even know why. But he played this as a super face. So he would come to the ring and he'd get on a microphone and go, man, I do this job for all of you fans. I love you so much. And all the wrestlers, you can kiss my ass. Unfortunately, all of his talent roster and crew did disagree. So yes, the week previous, they had said, we have no confidence in you, Triple H. And they decided to leave. And yet this week, none of them came back other than the cameramen or the camera people. I mean, again, try and explain that one, but somebody was shooting Triple H and it wasn't Triple H. There's also a hilarious pre-video that makes it feel like this is the worst and biggest thing that's ever happened in WWE. But hell, look, if you are going to do something right. And in a world where we're always talking about why can't Raw just start its shows a little bit differently, well, that's why this is actually quite good. Because it's pretty damn different. No commentators saying hello, no hype, no nothing. We even get a camera sort of zooming through the backstage halls, and there's nobody there Although I won't lie, I did expect to see Paul London just waving and smiling away. The first person you see is Triple H, who comes bounding out of his office. And look, because we are in 2021 and this is 10 years ago, Triple H with hair looks weird. How the hell is that possible? Do you remember when he shaved it and it was like, oh, what the hell is that? Well, now we've gone full circle. This does lead to that quite famous scene, though, where you do have Triple H, John Cena, Sheamus and CM Punk all deciding to jump the picket line. And I did think to myself, why the hell are they waiting in the parking lot? If it was me, I would have just have gone home. And they all just decide to take on different roles and they basically start to run the show. Also, because they did do this, doesn't it make them skivvies, whatever the word is, when you do ignore the rest of your peers who are trying to go on strike? So surely they're the bad guys, but nope, get cheered from the rafters. Everybody's entrance music gets played here, so either one, the audio guy had also done this, or two, in WWE, it's just some kind of magical land. When you do walk out the entrance tunnel, themes just start to play. That's what I want in my real life too. Imagine every time you left your house, you were out the front door, all of a sudden it went, da-ma-na. Be the greatest thing ever. And so yeah, they do book a match between Sheamus and John Cena, and Triple H is the referee and CM Punk is being the announcer. It is a little bit cutesy-cue because Triple H and CM Punk are now the best of friends, even though back in the summer they hated each other. What do you want from me? I didn't write it. I quit in 2004. All of this, however, was building to an even bigger surprise, because in the middle of this fight, all of a sudden Vince McMahon returns to Raw, and we hadn't seen him since July when Triple H had done the same thing to him and come out and said, oh, sorry, Papa Bear, but we're firing your ass. We don't have any confidence in you. I also found a hilarious article when I was researching this on a very reputable website that actually went, Triple H told Vince McMahon that the board of directors had fired him, and we're not 100% sure if that's part of the story or real. I was like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? 2011? Don't you tell me kayfabe is dead. And that's how we do business too. That's how we do business. Triple H comes out and goes, hey Vince. And he goes, hey Triple H, not Paul. And then we just kick him out of his own stupid company. This did turn into wrestling tennis though, because now McMahon was here to tell Triple H, oh well, screw your asshole. Nobody has confidence in you anymore. So I'm not gonna run the show, and you're not gonna run the show. And very depressingly, who is going to run the show, at least in the interim, was Johnny Laurinaitis. Now that's actually quite topical, because a couple of days ago, he was hired by WWE in a backstage capacity. And because we have brought up John Laurinaitis, you know the rules, we have to try and do the voice, and it's like, hey Triple H, what's going on? That just sounds like an old man about to die. So to break it all down, we shall do this. The opening madness is so much fun and so entertaining, it's getting it up. But everything with the general manager position, especially how it ends, well, that's got to get it down. I mean, at least we've moved on from the anonymous general manager, which had driven us all nuts. And also, when Sheamus comes out, he comes out to his old theme, you know, it's a shameful thing, lobster head. And we really have to make sure he gets it back before he retires. It just makes me feel all warm and fuzzy in my tum-tum. It's also worth noting that when Triple H is doing his opening promo, he basically says, well, I don't care if anybody actually does come in from the parking lot. I'll wrestle a broom for 2 hours, and I've wrestled most of those guys. I'll get a better match out of the broom. So he had essentially just said that 95% of the talent roster was absolutely crap. You never want to do that down. And what ties into that down as well is that as the hordes of people are now coming back into the building, and John Laurinaitis like, it's really pleasing to see you, John Morrison walks up to him and goes, well, I actually think you're worse than Triple H. So why the hell, Johnny boy, did you decide to come back to work? I'm going to tell you, as good as this story is, it also makes absolutely no sense. I mean, that's like demanding pizza for lunch every day, and then someone goes, well, I'll give you burgers, and you go, oh, great, I'll take a burger, and you eat the burger and go, I don't like burgers, it's disgusting. Christian disagreed, however, and thought that John Laurinaitis in this position was the best thing in the world. Do you want to know what happened next? Johnny ordered a match between John Morrison and Christian in their street clothes, and it lasted all of 90 seconds, and then John Morrison lost because of a distraction. Dolph Ziggler, Cody Rhodes, and Jack Swagger at ringside, and those last two made me laugh, given where they are in 2021. And of course, this was too much for John Morrison, who, like I say, was distracted, and Christian just pinned him for the 1, 2, 3. Down. If you're wondering too, John Morrison was about to leave the company too. Some wondered why he was booked like this. Triple H and Big J were then going at it again backstage, where Hunter essentially said to him, hey, I'm going to break your teeth and I'm going to break your hands. I was like, man, dude, that is way too much for some guy that just got a job. And then thankfully, out came the best ever version of Mark Henry. Henry was the world heavyweight champion at this stage and doing his whole Hall of Pain gimmick, and this was basically 10 years in the making. He came across like an absolute psychopath who could break you like a twig if he should so wanted, and he was totally believable as the guy, and I massively liked it, and I loved his flipping theme music. That is all time up. He was also pissed that he was going to have to take on Big Show at Vengeance because he decided that he wasn't the #1 contender, even though Big Show clearly was the #1 contender. And then yeah, we do get Mark Henry versus Randy Orton. And do you want to hear something funny too? It ended in a disqualification. Much like it had on SmackDown when they had fought the week before, and it went, oh, give it a second, 3 minutes. It's just so confusing because as already said, WWE had big plans and now they were running them into the ground. And while obviously a DQ is always ridiculous, I actually really enjoyed this one because it came thanks to none other than Mr. Cody Rhodes. He was feuding with Orton here, so gave him a twonk on the head, and this was the Cody that came out with that mask on. He would take paper bags and he put them over other people's heads. This was a really good character. This was a really good gimmick. WWE absolutely should have done more with it. And he bags Orton here just after he's been World's Strongest Slam, and then even gets on the microphone and says, do you want a receipt with your bag? I mean, that is just such a silly thing to say, but I absolutely adored it. So I actually loved all of this. I mean, it's raw craziness. For some reason, it did all right with me. Tamina was then on Raw, and I was like, holy shit, and to think she's been getting meaner every single year that has passed. She was also teaming with Rosa Mendez as they took on Kelly Kelly and Eve Torres. Well, this is just a very 2011 women's match. Because once again, this didn't go more than 2 minutes, and I don't want to be that guy, but Kelly Kelly and Rosa Mendez, I'm laughing, I feel bad, but they start this off, and I don't think they hit one spot that they tried to do. Bless them, they tried really hard, but yeah, even punches were missing other people's faces, and it did tickle me. I thought it was quite funny. I'm a terrible, terrible person. It did mean that I was having a great time though, because I definitely was entertained, and it ended when Torres gave Tamina a moonsault and probably whispered in her ear, I don't think you're that mean, and the shock was just too much, and Tamina wasn't able to kick out. I bashed my finger. You have no idea how much that hurt. So this is absolutely something I never needed to see twice in my life, but actually I never recall seeing it for the first time. So this was basically like my debut, and ultimately, you know, you gotta call a spade and get it down. Beth Phoenix and Natalya are also watching this backstage, and yes, you've guessed it, they are watching it on a TV screen at the most uncomfortable and most unnatural angle ever. I mean, it's honestly like that. Nobody watches TV screens in that way. Honestly, if you made somebody do this for too long, their flipping head would fall off and it would roll down the corridor. Ain't nobody want to see that. If WWE was happy to ban pile drivers because of the risk it, caused to people's heads, well, this should be banned too. This is also a Raw that is crazy heavy when it comes to segments, which is doubly nuts because it's still in the 2-hour era. But yes, out comes John Laurinaitis because we hadn't seen enough of him, and he just does something that was so needless and so pointless and so mean. His first announcement was that yes, our main event at Vengeance was going to be John Cena versus Alberto Del Rio, and given the response from the crowd, I don't think anybody wanted this. I mean, they barely made a sound. And then he asked Jim Ross, who'd only been back for a few months, to get into the ring. And because sometimes people can be pieces of trashes, and because we're in Oklahoma, which is JR's hometown, he says, Jim, we don't need you anymore, and you're fired. And did Jim Ross know anything about this beforehand? No. Was he blindsided? Yes. Did he actually conduct himself with absolute dignity and just walk off with a neutral expression on his face? Yes, he did. But it's horrible to watch. There was no entertainment in my sports entertainment, and I just don't get why we do this kind of thing. It's made even worse because Michael Cole has been told to play the bad guy, so he goes ballistic here, and you just want to rip your own eyes out or your ears off so you don't have to hear it anymore. And just don't do it. Just don't do it. Be nice to people. Oh, can you believe it? And that's why it doesn't just get a down, it gets a brow down. And I don't know whether in 2011 WWE was dealing with a shrunken roster, but all of a sudden Batista version number 2, Mason Ryan, is out here, and he's teaming with Kofi Kingston and Evan Bourne, and what a 3-person thing that is, and they're going against Dolph Ziggler, Jack Swagger, and David Otunga. Also, when it comes to Mason Ryan too, my word, he must have screwed up so badly because the size of this horse. Vince McMahon must have seen him and gone, I'm going to make you a multi-time world champion, but instead, he left the company before he really did anything. Otherwise, this was actually pretty good, kind of like the match you'd see on TV nowadays, where you need a couple of good guys to fill a spot. So you go out there and you find a couple of good guys and they fill a spot. The only real shame was that after a devastating powerbomb by Jack Swagger onto Evan Bourne clearly gets injured. And yeah, after this, he was off TV for a little while. We were clearly planning to do something with Ryan too, because not only does he beat up everybody on the opposition team, but he pins Dolph Ziggler, who at the time was the United States champion. He is a fascinating creature to watch though, because he moves a bit like a robot who has never had his parts oiled. I mean, the dude was just so stiff. I wanted to sit him down and give him a massage and hope that would make him feel better, but I doubt that it would. And then I was reminded about Brodus Clay. Now, fair play to WWE, because they went all in with these vignette videos going, oh my gosh, Brodus Clay is coming, Brodus Clay is going to be the best, Brodus Clay is going to change the very face of professional wrestling. And they went on for so long that he didn't turn up until January in 2012, and by that point you were just desperate to see him. And then when he did finally arrive, he was a dinosaur. He was a dinosaur. Because the Funkasaurus and the Funkadactyls did become a thing on Raw as he danced his way to Smile Town. And I can imagine that kids love this, but I wasn't a kid when I watched this in 2011, so I thought he was going to come in and just be this devastating, crushing machine, but he wasn't. Just to double down on it, he was a dinosaur. But it's like asking for a doctor's appointment to check on a small ailment, and you get to the doctor's surgery, and he just rips your heart out and you die. It's like, this wasn't what I was expecting at all, but now I'm just gonna have to deal with it. And then also remembered why going back and watching all these Raws is the best. Why? Because nothing has changed and everything has remained the same. Because our main event was CM Punk versus Alberto Del Rio, and it went for around about 4 minutes before WWE does that thing that they always do when they go, ha ha, tricked you. Even though we've been advertising this match for the entire night, we're just stopping it and we're gonna start a new one halfway through. Because Big Johnny came out once again and said, hey, I've got 2 announcements. 1, I've rehired The Miz and John Morrison after they too had been fired. And 2, that's what we're going to do now. It's going to be a tag team match between this pair taking on CM Punk and Alberto Del Rio, who had just been punching each other in the face. It was annoying because I was enjoying that, but it was taken away from me. And of course what happened. Alberto Del Rio was a massive asshat here, so he just walked out on CM Punk, leaving Punk to fight for himself. I was then absolutely dying because almost instantly the match ends in a disqualification. There's no clean finishes at all in 2011, because basically the Miz and R-Truth are just thwomping on him, and the ref's like, can you please leave the ring? You're not supposed to be in the ring. And when they don't, he goes, all right, fine, ding, 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 disqualification. The bad guys then beat up CM Punk before Triple H makes the save, and we've already talked about how nutty that all is. And then we did have to have one last segment before Raw ended with John Laurinaitis, when he was talking to David Otunga, and he went, oh, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to make the Miz and R-Truth taking on Triple H and CM Punk for vengeance. So that's where that thing came from. Let's get it down. I mean, no wonder Punk walked out. And that is how Monday Night Raw goes off air. So while it starts absolutely brilliantly, and we had this angle that we could have used, it ends just in the most stereotypical and WWE way, and John Laurinaitis is back, and I just don't think that's what anybody wanted to see. Probably why they went out and got Brock Lesnar to return just after WrestleMania. So overall, while I was very entertained, it was all for the wrong reasons, and it's got to get it down. Also, it's an episode of Raw, so there is no Wrestling Observer ratings. I will give it all -4 stars, and you can talk about that in the comments. You can also like the video, share the video, and subscribe. Head over to WhatCulture.com where you can read articles. Also, there's loads of retro ups and downs down here on the channel. Go back in time and check them out. And if you'd like to follow us on social media, that would be great. My name is Simon from WhatCulture. Remember as well, when you get into those comments to let us know what should we do next week on Retro Ups and Downs, and we'll take the 4 that are voted the most and we'll put them in the poll. Otherwise, have great weekends or have great days. Have great whatever you're doing, and I'll see you soon.